Well, friends, it looks like we have some more potentially breaking news in the world of Star Trek, this time in the realm of films. Being reported by Deadline over here about 45 minutes or so ago, this came out, and this one here is written by Jonathan Kroll. But we have new Star Trek movie in the works at Paramount from Jonathan Goldstein and John Francis Daley. This coming off the heels of that news about the old Star Trek film franchise. Before I go too deeply into that, we'll see if they mention it here in the actual article. Exclusive. After breathing new life into high-profile IP like Spider-Man, franchise, and Dungeons & Dragons, Jonathan Goldstein and John Francis Daley are looking to boldly go... You get that. It's Star Trek. Where no directors have gone before, with a popular franchise. Where no directors have gone before? Aren't there 14 Star Trek movies? Assuming we're including Section 31 in there. So boldly going where a handful of directors have gone before. Sources tell Deadline that the duo are coming on to write, produce, and are attached to direct a new original Star Trek film for Paramount. They will produce under their Gold Day banner. Not sure what Gold Day means, but reminds me of Gold Key, and they did Star Trek comics. Very wacky Star Trek comics. Plot details are being kept tightly under wraps. I added tightly, I'm sorry. But sources say Goldstein and Daley's film is a completely new take on the Star Trek universe, and not connected to any previous or current television series, movie, or prior movie development projects. That pitch falls in line with Skydance founder David Ellison's recent comments on an earnings call where he said that Star Trek film would not be a sequel in the Chris Pine-led series, but something different with new actors. While not confirmed, sources also add it's likely that new characters will be featured in this version. As for Goldstein and Daley, the two have shown a knack for delivering scripts with new and fresh takes on existing IPs. This is going to talk about their witty background and stuff they've done. Paramount's best scored films from 2023 rather, a 91%. And okay, so that's frankly not too much to glean here, but the big questions that are kind of imposed by this news are, what is their plan for Star Trek? They say blatantly it's not going to be part of the Kelvinverse because, as we were told about a week or so ago, maybe a week and a half, I don't remember exactly, the Kelvinverse is officially done. They're moving forward from that. Now, frankly, I think maybe in 10 years or so, maybe not even that long, there will be some sort of resurgence of nostalgia for it, and maybe they'll go ahead and make a sort of final chapter in the Kelvinverse. I don't personally think we need a final chapter to really close the door on it, but I do think it will happen at some point. This is interesting here because it seems to be not just a brand new take on Star Trek whole stop, but it's not going to be connected to anything we currently have. Now, I don't know, and I don't think anyone really knows based on this information, what that exactly means. Are they reimagining Star Trek from the ground up? That's what's sort of alarming me, maybe. Or are they just going to try and keep it in the same universe, but as a fresh start? So I guess the two differences there are, I guess there could be three differences. Another reboot, like the 2009 film, which technically wasn't a reboot. It was a fractured universe from the Prime timeline, in essence. So sort of a reboot, but sort of also having your cake and eating it too. Or you could just make a new project in the established Star Trek timeline, disconnected from everything. So it's not a sequel to Discovery, it's not Star Trek Legacy, but maybe it's set in the 25th, 26th century with a new ship and a new crew in the Prime universe, in the Prime timeline. Just no returning characters or plot lines or anything, almost like what the Next Generation was, aside from the actual callbacks and the carryovers, like McCoy visiting them in episode 1 to be like, hey, you're the Enterprise now, peace out, bye. And I suppose the third option is they literally just scrap everything, take the core concept of Star Trek and rewrite it from scratch. Make a sci-fi space adventure with all of the trappings of Star Trek, but not really connected to what we know. Not a new Enterprise, not a new version of Kirk, nothing that we've seen before. Heck, maybe even redesign the way the ships work, how the technology in the universe works. Just call it Star Trek, and everything about it is not the Star Trek we know. That's what has me a little bit worried by saying they're going to scrap it and just redo something from scratch. I don't want a reimagining of what Star Trek could be. I don't want them to sit down and just fundamentally make a new sci-fi series with the name Star Trek attached to it that really has nothing to do with the Star Trek we've come to know up until this point. If they want to go ahead and do a new reboot with another iteration of Kirk, I also think that's a bad idea. For whatever reason, they keep coming back to the same decade surrounding the original series, and every time they do move forward, something happens, and I feel like they learned the wrong lesson. They moved forward sort of with Discovery, but they moved way too far forward, so it almost feels entirely disconnected. They moved forward finally with Picard in the actually all 3 seasons of Picard were moving forward, but they lost confidence with each season of that show, and it doesn't seem like there's any momentum to actually continue that right now. They moved forward well with Prodigy, and we see what they did to that. So all of this is to say, what do you think personally they should do with the Star Trek franchise? I'm not the biggest fan of feeling like it needs to be a film franchise, but I'm also of the opinion that I don't want to go back to a world where the film and the movies were fractured and separate and they couldn't really cross over that well. If we're going to have Star Trek movies, I would like them to be actually tied into what's going on in the shows. Possibly this is going to be sort of a tie-in to that Star Trek Origins movie that was talked about, but that was different writer attached to that, different director. So I don't know if that project is entirely scrapped now too. But what do you think of the news that they are trying to do a brand new Star Trek? What's the actual way they refer to it? Let me see if I can find that down here. Yeah, a new take on the Star Trek universe and not connected to any previous or current blah, 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 blah. Does that mean it will be ground up, brand new Star Trek, nothing recognizable? Or does that simply mean moving away from any of the casts and characters and ships we know and setting it in the same universe, just with new people and new adventures in a new timeline? Maybe if things go well, it'll eventually cross over with they'll meet the older versions of people at some point, but they want to start fresh. If they wanted to, they could adapt something like that. The Peter David New Frontier, I think it was called, novel series. New crew, new adventures, but within the scaffolding of the pre-existing Star Trek universe. And if all goes well, maybe have it eventually tie into some of the Star Trek actors and characters we know. I think it's dangerous to throw everything out that we currently have, regardless of the fact that some of it's not working, some of it is working. Most of it's probably not that profitable, being a streaming only service right now. But if they throw all that out and try to reimagine Star Trek from the ground up right now without taking a break or without really giving us any sort of closure on the current stuff, I think that could be detrimental to the franchise in the long run, and that might actually put the nail in the coffin to make it go on break or hiatus for the next decade. But those are just my thoughts. What do you think about this news? What do you think they're going to do? What would be your idea to make a new Star Trek film that's quote-unquote disconnected and not involving any characters? What would you like to see based on the wording and the phrasing they're saying here, if anything at all? Leave all that down below. Like, share, subscribe, hype, join, do all those YouTube things. But until next time, computer, end program.